There are villages that fade over decades, their people leaving one by one until only crumbling houses remain. We know this process. It is natural, slow, and predictable. But there is one village that did not fade. It vanished in a single night. No footsteps, no screams, not even the faintest trace of where its people had gone. Only silence. The story begins with fragments, a journal here, a rumor there, bits of folklore passed down in whispers. The village had no great name, nothing, to set it apart from the countless settlements scattered across the valleys and hills. Yet its disappearance carved it into legend. According to the last surviving diary, the day before the disappearance was strange in ways that were hard to put into words. The air was heavy, suffocating almost, as though the entire valley was holding its breath. Animals refused to behave normally. Dogs growled at empty doorways, their eyes fixed on shadows that moved where no human stood. Chickens fluttered restlessly in their coops until they fell silent, as though silenced by some unseen command. Even the crickets stopped chirping. For a village used to the constant background noise of life, the silence was more frightening than any scream. That night, the moon rose red, not a deep crimson, but a bright, bloody scar across the sky. The villagers tried to dismiss it as an omen of weather, of dust in the air, of storms that sometimes gave the moon strange colors. But they knew better. In old stories, a red moon meant a veil had thinned, a doorway had shifted, something forbidden was walking. Inside the houses, families tried to carry on as usual. Bread was left to rise by the fire. A kettle hissed with steam. Parents tucked children into their straw beds, whispering prayers they had learned from their own parents. And yet, unease clung to the walls like a dampness that would not go away. One villager left a note before extinguishing his candle. The handwriting was frantic, uneven. The shadows move when no one is there. If this continues, none of us will see morning. But morning never came at dawn. Travelers from a neighboring valley approached. What they found has haunted generations. The houses stood intact, doors left ajar, windows swung open to the morning breeze. But inside, nothing. No voices, no footsteps, no laughter of children. Meals sat unfinished on tables. In one home, a pot of stew still steamed faintly, as though someone had stepped away only moments before. A chair had been overturned, as if someone had risen quickly. And in another, candles still burned, its wax melted nearly to the base. Yet there were no bodies, no blood, no footprints leading away. The villagers were not gone in the way of war or fire. They were simply missing, as if each of them had dissolved into the air between one breath and the next dot. When investigators came later that week, they were baffled. They found valuables left behind, coins stacked neatly, jewelry tucked into drawers, clothes still drying on the lines, children's toys scattered across floors. If this had been abandonment, it was the strangest kind, for no one leaves there. Life mid-breath, some whispered plague. But no sickbeds, no corpses, no signs of illness were found. Others whispered darker things, that the earth itself had swallowed the people whole, that a curse older than the village itself had been triggered. The legend spoke of a chamber beneath the soil, an ancient tomb sealed with iron and stone, carved with warnings never meant to be broken. For generations, the story had been dismissed as folklore, a tale to frighten children. But when the red moon rose, perhaps the seal cracked. Perhaps something stirred. Witnesses from neighboring hills claimed they saw lights that night. Not torches, not fires, but pale orbs drifting silently between the trees. They spoke of a procession, dozens of figures, tall and pale, walking with hollow eyes toward the mountains. They made no sound. Their feet left no marks. They simply walked and then vanished into the mist. That was only the beginning of the story. For centuries after, the land remained empty, and the memory of the village faded into whispers of what once was. Yet sometimes, stories refuse to die. The empty village did not remain forgotten. For years after, travelers avoided the valley. Farmers who tried to settle nearby abandoned their fields within months. They spoke of unease, of seeing silhouettes wandering in the fog at dusk. They heard faint voices when the wind shifted, names whispered that no one in their families had ever known. Children who strayed too close to the ruins returned pale and trembling, unable to describe what they had seen. Some refused to speak at all. In the late 19th century, a group of scholars attempted to investigate the mystery. They camped at the site, bringing notebooks, lanterns, and measuring tools. For 3 days they recorded nothing unusual, save for the unnatural silence that fell each night. On the 4th night, however, their journals changed. One entry described the sound of hundreds of feet walking on gravel, though the camp was empty and no paths led into the ruins. Another wrote of hearing children laughing at the edge of the firelight. On the 5th day, the scholars were gone. Their tents remained, their belongings untouched. Their papers stopped mid-sentence. Only one fragment of writing was left behind. The procession has begun again. They do not walk in our time. The land seemed to resist any attempt to reclaim it. Trees refused to grow tall. Grass withered in patches as if scorched by an invisible flame. And yet, animals wandered into the ruins, only to emerge hours later behaving strangely. Sheep refused to follow their shepherds. Dogs growled at their masters. Horses collapsed in terror, their hearts pounding until they died. Locals told another story that, on certain nights, the valley glowed with a light that was neither moon nor fire, a dull, pulsating red shimmer rising from the soil itself. One who approached during those nights ever returned by the mid-20th century. The legend of the village had become a curiosity, whispered by storytellers and dismissed by academics. Yet in the 1950s, a historian named Elias ventured into the valley to prove or disprove the tale once and for all. He pitched his tent on the cracked foundations of what had once been the village square. By day, he found nothing but stones and weeds. By night, however, the air changed. In his journal, discovered years later, Elias described hearing the hum of life in the darkness. He wrote of footsteps shuffling over broken earth, doors creaking open, the sound of buckets dipping into wells. He described voices speaking in dialects no one had used for centuries. One night, he heard his own name whispered from outside his tent, in the voice of his long-dead father. The final entry in his journal read, "They are still here. I can see them walking in the mist." Their faces are pale, their eyes empty, but they move as though the village never ended. They beckon me to follow. They say it is not death, but something older, something waiting. If I go with them, I will never return. But if I refuse, they will not let me leave. Elias never came back. His tent was found, his notes scattered, his belongings untouched. But there was no sign of him. Decades passed, and the ruins eroded further. Maps erased the name of the village, replacing it with empty fields. But the land never truly let go. Travelers who wandered too close still spoke of flickering lights and phantom footsteps. Shepherds swore they saw figures standing among the stones, watching them with hollow eyes. And on nights when the moon turned red, the valley was avoided. Entirely today, nothing remains of the village. The fields are bare, the foundations crumbled, the stories old. Yet those who pass nearby say the silence is wrong. The air grows heavy, the birds fall quiet, and the wind carries whispers that do not belong to the living. Some claim that if you stop and listen long enough, you will hear the village itself, doors slamming, children playing, prayers rising. From unseen lips, they say the people are still there, caught in the night they vanished, trapped between worlds. They walk endlessly, repeating their last steps, searching for something no one can name. And if you dare to enter the valley when the fog is thick, they may mistake you for one of their own. They may call your name. They may invite you to join them, but no one knows what truly happened. Perhaps the seal beneath the soil broke, releasing something that demanded a price. Perhaps the villagers themselves performed a ritual that consumed them. Or perhaps the land itself rejected them, swallowing them into a time outside of ours. But one truth cannot be denied. An entire community, every man, woman, and child, vanished without a trace. And if a village can disappear in a single night, what else could vanish tonight while you sleep?